Hello and welcome to Views on News. I am Jawad Tehami. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto has said that the incumbent government has put a full stop to the policy of appeasement of the terrorists, and we are confident that we'll be able to take on the terrorists which are functioning from Pakistan. During his interview on the sidelines of the Munich Security Conference, he said that the interim government in charge in Afghanistan must also live up to their commitments they made to the international community as well as to their own people after taking over Kabul, that the Afghan soil is not to be used for terrorism. And during his address to the world leaders at the Munich Security Conference, the foreign minister warned that it wouldn't take any time for terrorism to go to other places beyond Pakistan if the Afghan government did not demonstrate the will and the capacity to take on the militant groups operating from its territory. At the same time, the foreign minister urged the international community to act preactively rather than reactively after the nightmare scenario of the Kabul fall. There has been a reaction from the Afghan Taliban also on these statements, but the foreign minister Bilawal Bhutto will be discussing that reaction also to these statements of foreign minister. At the same time, we have seen that the United States has once again expressed its support for Pakistan in its fight against terrorism, condemning the recent two terrorist acts, one in Karachi and Peshawar as well. Earlier, we saw the United States Institute of Peace in its report said that Afghan Taliban rulers are unlikely to discontinue supporting militants in Pakistan as they feel that economic troubles prevent Islamabad from launching a major operation against the banned Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan. We'll be taking a look at all these aspects regarding the security situation, uptick in the terrorist activity in Pakistan, role of the international community, and what happens to be the responsibility of the Afghan Taliban. But before jumping into the discussion, let's take a listen what the foreign minister had to say.
The good news is that the new unity government is clear. The new military leadership is clear. We've had national security meetings in our country, and we've put a full stop to the policy of appeasement. We're confident that we'll be able to take on the terrorist groups that are functioning within Pakistan. However, I do believe we will be in a high-risk security phase until the question of the security threat or the terrorist threats emanating out of Afghanistan. The most realistic, practical, and perhaps optimistic scenario is that the interim government in charge right now live up to their commitment that they made before taking over to their own people and to the international community to ensure their soil was not used for terrorism. And if they demonstrate the will and build the capacity to be able to take them on and deal with this threat, then I think that solves quite a lot of the problem for the region and for the international community. I don't think anybody has the appetite or the desire to see a re-entry of international forces, of any other forces in our neighborhood anytime soon. I don't think that they respond to threats or pressure well. I think that's what we've seen over the past year. I think engagement is important, but there has to be an environment conducive to have that engagement. And our message to the interim government in Afghanistan has been to sort of help us help them. And steps such as the ending of right to women's education surely isn't helping them and isn't helping us help them.
You were just watching Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto talking to a foreign news channel during his interview, in which he urged the interim Afghan government to demonstrate the will and the capacity against all the terrorist outfits that are operating from the Afghan territory. He's also said that our message to the Afghan government is help us and help them. For example, ending the ban on women on the right to education, surely it is not helping us and it is not helping the Afghan government as well. Let me bring in our panelists on Skype. We are honored to have been joined by Mr. Hassan Khan. He's expert Afghan affairs. Mr. Hassan Khan, thank you very much for taking time out for Views on News tonight. We really appreciate that. You would have definitely heard what Foreign Minister has categorically said. He has urged the Afghan government to demonstrate not only the will, but also the capacity so that the Afghan soil is not used against any other country and for terrorism. So there clearly happens to be a responsibility of the Afghan government, the commitment they not only made to the international community, but also to their own people as per the Doha peace deal. Your take on this, sir?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think the Foreign Minister, Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, has rightly pointed it out. And, I think he presented the Pakistan's case with the terrorism in the region, and particularly in Pakistan, very appropriately. He is right in saying that as long as the Afghan issue is there, so I think the region will be destabilized. And in a way, he also urged the international community that it is the time to help the current Afghan regime, whether you like it or not. But the fact is that Taliban are at the moment, they are ruling, they are rulers of the Kabul, and they are rulers of the entire Afghanistan. So the world has to realize it. And at the moment, even previously at Munich Security Committee committee meeting at that roundtable interaction, President Foreign Minister Bilawal too has pointed out the weaknesses, the way international community is looking at the Afghan issue, and the problems which Pakistan is facing due to the current situation in Afghanistan. He said that Taliban's at the moment internally they may not have any problem, as the West is expecting that there will be an uprising of the people against Taliban. He said that don't expect that, but there is a kinetic threat to the Taliban in Afghanistan, and that is the ISIS, Daesh, Al Qaeda, etc. These and various other terrorist networks which are operating from Afghanistan. So he said that Pakistan is trying to take care of its own territory, definitely, and Pakistan is not wishing, or it is not intending to cross the border and chase the terrorists across the border in Afghanistan. However, Pakistan is facing a threat because the TTP terrorists at the moment they are using the Afghan sides, and despite the fact that Taliban, as you rightly mentioned, they promised the international community, especially while signing the Doha agreement, that they will not allow any terrorist organization, network, or syndicate to use the Afghan side against any country, including Pakistan and other neighboring countries. But unfortunately, look, for the last almost a year, more than a year, when Taliban has taken over Kabul, the Afghan side is being used against Pakistan. The TTP is targeting various installations. They are targeting the security forces. They are targeting the police personnel, especially in the provinces of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan. And a few days back, you saw that they targeted the Karachi police office in Karachi. So I think, and they are claiming the responsibility. It's not that they just say it, they just do it. They are claiming the responsibility, and the telephones are being traced to the Afghan side. So I think Taliban definitely, the world expect and Pakistan expect that they will definitely try to secure their land, and their land is not used against any country, particularly against Pakistan.
Right, Mr. Khan, there is a reaction from the Afghan Taliban also after these statements coming at the Munich Security Conference and during this particular interview by the foreign minister. They have welcomed, there are two parts of this particular reaction. The first welcomes the statements which relates to the capacity building, unfreezing Afghanistan assets, lifting banking restrictions, and continuing humanitarian assistance to Afghanistan. But as far as the security concerns of Pakistan are concerned, the Afghan interim spokesperson, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the interim Afghan government, is of the view that these remarks are far from the truth, and the Afghan government lacks, as the foreign minister said, that Afghan government lacks standing security forces are untrue. Now, they go on to say that the de facto the Afghan Taliban have proven in practice to regional and world countries that with professional and experienced security forces, it has not allowed anyone to use the territory of Afghanistan against others. So that statement shows another sort of a denial on the part of the interim Afghan government. Why is that so?
I think it's very unfortunate. The Afghan Taliban, the way they are denying that the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan is not using their side, and I think there are no, there are, there's a fact, and nobody can deny it that at the moment the TTP leadership is in Afghanistan. You know, when the Pakistani delegation was trying to meet them, where they met with the entire delegation of Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, they were at Serena, Kabul, not somewhere in Peshawar and Waziristan and Bajawar districts, etc. But they were right there in Kabul. And you know that there are reports, and if you go by the Twitter spaces and other social media accounts, you will definitely see that the TTP leadership, they are right there across the border. But it's very unfortunate. I think if you see the way Afghan Taliban are denying it, I think look at the way they denied they reacted over the Peshawar mosque where 200 innocent worshippers were targeted and more than 100 were killed. But the way the Afghan Taliban foreign ministers, Wakil Mutawakkil, the way he said that. So I think that was just mocking with such a big tragedy that hit Peshawar and that hit Pakistan and they hit a mosque. So I think you can't expect Taliban that they will portray themselves or they will just they will play as a normal state. So I think as far as their security machinery is concerned, instrument is concerned, it is in total disarray. It is in a way very informal, and the same is the other department. So I think denying something doesn't, I think, qualify it that yes, the peoples are not there. Look at the U.S., the American reports, the United Nations reports. That is not only the TTP, even the ISKP, Al Qaeda, IMU, the Tajikistan, the Taliban movement of Tajikistan, the ETI, etc. There's a number of terrorist networks, syndicates, which are operating from the Afghan sides. Some are targeting the Chinese interests, some are targeting the Tajikistan, some are targeting the Uzbekistan, some are targeting Turkmenistan, etc. And even the Daesh, which is most primarily focused on the Shiites, etc. So I think if you deny something, you can't hold your finger to a sun and say that you are not seeing that there is no sun at all. So I think going by their denial, it's not something acceptable to anyone, to any rational person in Pakistan or anywhere in the world. So I think definitely they will deny it, but it's a fact that the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan is using the Afghan soil. They are using it for training. They are using it for collecting money. They are using it, their families are there, etc. When the previous government in Pakistan, when they said that they want to ship the 35 plus thousand the TTP, their families and the women and children, etc. So from where they want to be shifted back to Pakistan, definitely from Afghanistan. And when Taliban were talking, were I think advocating their case with the Pakistani establishment, so they were advocating it for the reason that the TTP and all the guys are there inside Afghanistan.
Right, Mr. Hassan Khan, your point is well taken. Please stay with us on the phone line. We're joined by another participant, Mr. Asif Durrani, former ambassador. Mr. Durrani, thank you very much for taking time out for views on news. Tonight, we really appreciate that. Now, Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari spoke at the Munich Security Conference. He also spoke during an interview urging the interim Afghan government to demonstrate the will and the capacity to not allow the Afghan soil. Clearly, a responsibility happens to fall on the shoulders of the interim Afghan government as per the Doha peace deal. But the kind of reaction we have seen from the interim Afghan government on these statements of the foreign minister says something otherwise. And they say that these statements by the foreign minister are far from the truth. Your take on this, sir?
Thank you, Jawad, for having me. I think it is natural what reaction we should expect from the Taliban regime. But the facts on the ground speak for themselves, and Taliban cannot deny the fact that right now almost 11 different organizations which are wanted elsewhere in the world, including in Pakistan, which is TTP. They are in fact living in Afghanistan. They are being either we call it harbored, or they are in fact Taliban are looking the other way, or third possibility is that they are not under the control of the Taliban. So here Taliban may have been good fighters, but they are not good administrators. So while they have captured the country, but they have not, in fact, restored peace, or if one can say, that they have not been able to control those organizations which fall in the category of terrorists. Yes.
Right, Mr. Durrani, this particular reaction on the statements of the foreign minister, there are various parts to it. The other parts, there is not only denial on the part of the Afghan Taliban, but they also reaffirmed that we would like to draw attention of the countries of the region and the world to the fact that the Islamic Emirate has taken concrete steps to strengthen the security of Afghanistan and the region, both during the occupation and after the conquest. So what does this particular statement depict?
But what they have to show, that is, we would love to see what results Taliban are likely to show. What we see is that Russian embassy was attacked, Chinese citizens were attacked in a hotel, Pakistan's ambassador was targeted, Pakistan head of mission was targeted. So these are the, quite, and these are these are the evidences which show that Taliban have failed to do their job as a responsible government. And if they want to claim that they have taken measures and they have brought the country under control and they have restored peace and stability in Afghanistan, they may have as far as the common populace is concerned. But here our focus is on the terrorist organizations. They are living in Afghanistan with the blessings of the Taliban. For instance, TTP, I have no qualms in saying that TTP is living in Afghanistan with the consent of the Afghan Taliban, because they owe their allegiance to Mullah Akhundzada. And when they owe their allegiance, which means bad, they have done the bad. If the bad is theirs, in that case, Mullah Akhundzada is bound to give protection to them. But main concern is, if they live there, that is okay. Because this is also from the Islamic point of view, or for that matter, from the traditional point of view, from a Pashtun point of view, this is a possibility that they can take shelter in Afghanistan. But if they use Afghanistan soil to launch attacks on Pakistan and Pakistan's security forces or common people, then this is a serious matter. And here, Taliban will have to do a lot of explanation, and they have not given any satisfactory explanation. Yes.
Right, Mr. Durrani, I'll come back to you. We are on to have been joined in the studio. Please stay with us. I'll come back to you to discuss this particular point a little more in detail. In the studio, we are honored to have been joined by Mr. Air Vice Marshal, retired Ijaz Malik, senior analyst. Mr. Malik, thank you very much for taking time out for Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari spoke at the Munich Security Conference, urging the Afghan interim government once again to fulfill their commitment. And during that interview also with the Foreign News Channel, he also said that they should demonstrate the will and the capacity that the terrorist outfits don't. But there is a very different sort of reaction again by the interim Afghan government, that they say that they have taken concrete steps, and the world should know that they have taken concrete steps to strengthen the security of Afghanistan and in the region, both during the occupation and after that also. You take.
Yes, the Foreign Minister has been very candid and assertive in conveying the Pakistan's concern. But the statement given by, or response from the Afghan government, it's easy to say or easy to state something, but what is the definition of their having ensured security? It's not the security of, as the ambassador was Durrani was saying, it's not the security per se of the people who are not being targeted. They are not on the radar of these terrorist organizations. This is the security or the launching pad status of various areas of Afghanistan, which is a threat to the regional peace. And that is where they have to ensure that all their commitments which they have made to the international community and particularly to the facilitator of the talks which ultimately resulted into their formation
Mr. Malik,
of government.
you've heard Mr. Durrani also saying that the Taliban have failed in Afghanistan. And there are groups, as you have also mentioned, and Mr. Khan has also mentioned earlier, there are various groups which are operating from there, from the Afghan soil. That is what exactly the foreign minister also said. There is a kind of a soup of the terrorist groups that is operating from that soil, emanates an imminent threat to the region. And it wouldn't take more time for terrorism to go beyond Pakistan. First, it will affect the region as well as the international community. There was a report by the United States Institute of Peace that the Afghan Taliban rulers are unlikely to discontinue their support to the militants that are operating against Pakistan, given the economic difficulties Pakistan is facing with.
Exactly. Even if they are not physically supporting, but a kind of tacit approval or a kind of understanding does exist, which allows these people, who are harboring terrorism across the border, which allows them to, do things with impunity. And if we see in the recent past, in last almost a year plus, there have been instances all over Pakistan, and these are, they have their roots or they have their, backup support from TTP. So we have to. I think our government, on diplomatic fronts and being candid and being very assertive on all forums, we must talk from a position of strength to them. Because after withdrawal of NATO troops, Pakistan has a better chance to exert herself because we have certain leverage as far as the socio-economic support to Afghanistan is concerned, and Afghanistan must value that we have been very supportive to host their refugees for decades now, and we have supported them. The entire world hasn't recognized them, but we are still affording them all humanitarian support, all kind of assistance, whichever is possible, given our own economic constraints.
Well, Mr. Malik, there are two statements by the Afghan Taliban. One relates to the security in which they utterly deny the presence of the terrorist outfits that are operating from the Afghan soil. But the other thing which the foreign minister highlighted during the security conference relates to unfreezing of Afghan assets, lifting banking restrictions and continuing humanitarian assistance to Afghanistan. That thing where Pakistan can have that leverage, and Pakistan wants the international community to think and consider these options also, like unfreezing the assets and continuing with the humanitarian assistance. So how can Pakistan play this particular thing to gain that leverage so that the Afghan Taliban listen to what the real concerns of Pakistani authorities are?
As per our stated policy and our aspiration of the state of Pakistan, a stable Afghanistan is the most suitable solution to us. We have always been supporting that, and although in the remote past there were certain differences in the policies and there are different cycles in which probably we deviated from that policy, but now for a very long period we are pursuing that policy, and it should be taken in the positive spirit, and the world should realize that this area stability is in the general interest of the entire region, not only Pakistan. And if we want to exert, in the international community want some compliance regarding human rights, women's rights, and certain other issues which keep cropping up in the international media, then there has to be some give and take. So if you don't support them economically, like you have mentioned, the unfreezing their assets or any other kind of assistance, then you cannot negotiate. So the world also has to do its part if they are really interested to have a stable Afghanistan.
Right. Mr. Durrani, your take regarding this. The foreign minister also said that the international community was not doing enough to contain that very threat. He's urged the international community to act preactively rather than reactively. And he has also urged the international community to help build the interim Afghan government's security capacity also. So how do you think the international community should respond to this?
I think Foreign Minister was right in pointing out those problems which have emanated due to freezing of Afghan assets. And this is, in fact, directly impacting the Afghan people. It's just not the Taliban, because Taliban happen to be in power at the moment. But this money was the Afghan government's, which in fact fled before the Taliban could come to Kabul. This is their asset, and they have to manage. And secondly, the humanitarian assistance, that's also very important. And this is the second harshest winter Afghan people are facing. And more importantly, almost 5 million children are at risk. They are for malnourishment and stunted growth. And and if the situation remains like what we witnessed today, it can further deteriorate, and it can force the Afghan populace to migrate. And then for us, the concern would be that their first stop would be Pakistan. Because Pakistan, when you look at the Afghanistan's immediate neighbors, then the divided ethnic groups between Pakistan and Afghanistan are more intense and more symbiotic as compared to other neighbors of Afghanistan. So already almost 400,000 Afghans are on Pakistan soil. And of course, they want to leave for other countries, especially United States and European destinations. But till the time they are on Pakistan soil, they are using Pakistani resources. They may not be using Pakistani resources, but there are perhaps there is a burden on the cities, on rents, and on other costs of living. So it is important that the world community should realize this, and they may have the political dispute. We also have a political dispute with regard to inclusivity, with regard to women's rights. We are on the same page as far as the world community is concerned. As far as immediate neighbors of Afghanistan are concerned, they have. But there's a difference. European countries and America, they are silent as far as humanitarian assistance and unfreezing of Afghan assets is concerned. But immediate neighbors of Afghanistan have unequivocally demanded that Afghanistan's assets should be unfrozen. So this is a difference, and this difference needs to be bridged so that some modus vivendi could be evolved and some relief could be given to the Afghan people. Yes.
Right, Mr. Durrani, please stay with us. Mr. Malik, the foreign minister also said, so rather than having Americans to go back in, or us or anybody else having go over there, the most realistic and practical approach is to engage with the Afghan Taliban. So when we talk about the security front, the security concerns, he has also urged the international community, alluding to the fact that they don't have a standing army, nor a counter-terrorism force, or even proper border security. So international community must play its role. So how can international community help interim Afghan government have a standing army over there?
This was feared by all analysts once the withdrawal of American troops and NATO troops was planned, because they had not been able to engage, and they have not been able to build the capacity of the law enforcement agencies in Afghanistan. And obviously, once the funding has been squeezed, it is almost impossible to sustain any outfit, regardless whether it was established to what extent or not. So now, and there is no regional country which is in a position to help them in this regard. It's only the European or the bigger, financially the groups, group of countries or the countries. The lead role should be played by America, because wherever Afghanistan is today, it has direct bearing of the American policy. Of course, it had at some stage the consensus of all the NATO allies and the UN resolution and all that, but everybody knows that practically it's all doing of which superpower, the sole superpower of the world. So now is the time that we should consider it not only as a political issue and or a security issue, but purely on humanitarian grounds also. We need to help them, because it is only once they have some stake with the engagement of the international players, only then they would respond to any demands. So we have to practically think and then evolve some diplomatic measures of engagement.
Right, Mr. Durrani, how do you think that this international support in regards to building the capacity for a standing army for the interim Afghan government could be looked at?
I think that would be a long-term, you can say, solution. And I don't think that immediately international community would be ready for building the Afghan army. But it is right now the peace and order is maintained through the Afghan style or the Taliban style. And Afghan army, in fact, Afghanistan traditionally did not have a big army, even when during Zahir Shah's time. It was the tribal force which would maintain peace and order in the country. So they can maintain through the traditional way, which they are doing at the moment. Main issue is engaging them politically, engaging them consistently, and also as a compensation, there should be some assistance in building their capacity in governance, in building in education, in other fields. That is more important. Army would come later, yes.
Right, Mr. Durrani, Pakistani authorities have repeatedly been trying to engage with the Afghan Taliban to make them realize that they have certain responsibility. But if they continue to back the banned Tehrik-e-Taliban in Pakistan, and such type of untoward incidents keep on happening in Pakistan, and there doesn't happen to be much of support by the international community in the immediate future. So what happen to be the options at the hands of the Pakistani authorities?
We should not be so enthusiastic about doing all the things in Afghanistan. We, for a while or for a change, we should give ourselves a pause, and whatever we can do, we should do how the immediate neighbors of Afghanistan have decided, and I think we are part of that consensus. That's why we have not recognized the Taliban regime. And the important thing is that we should not try to baptize the Taliban. I have repeated myself many a times. Please let them fend for themselves. If they need some assistance, they should come to us. But then if it is possible for us to render that assistance, we should do that. If there is a possibility that other countries may join that, we should assist in that. But I think we should not be enthusiastic about going to Afghanistan. This is my considered view, yes.
Right, Mr. Asif Durrani, former ambassador, thank you very much for joining on the phone line. We really appreciate your time. Mr. Malik, what options remain at the hands of the Pakistani authorities if the Afghan Taliban continue to keep on supporting the banned Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan and such untoward incidents continue to recur?
I think we should talk to them and make them realize that we have other options available, and with their own very meager defensive capability, and we do have the entire wherewithal to engage anybody across border. with the stand of weapons even. But that should be the last resort. But they must respect that, because these are the banned outfit from Pakistan. If they have taken refuge in Afghanistan, then given all the international norms, or the in the past, particularly 3 or 4 decades, even UN has supported the right to safeguard your own interest and strike those non-state actors with any force that is operationally feasible without hampering the safety of the civilian population.
So earlier we saw there was unconditional support expressed by the US when it comes to Pakistan's dealing with this menace of terrorism, and especially its battle against the banned Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan. The State Department spokesperson, Mr. Ned Price, categorically said that Pakistan reserves the right to defend itself. And now again he has expressed support to Pakistan, but we have seen a statement by Mr. Derek Chollet, who, let me quote him, he says that I'm not going to get into hypotheticals about what we would support or not. I don't want to say publicly how that Price's statement would apply in hypothetical situations. Does this situation allude to the fact that the US is still not sure how to support Pakistan if it comes to Pakistan to go for the last resort?
I think given the scenario and given the current threat perception, Pakistan can do it at its own. That's not an issue. The issue is of the political will to do that, which should be developed if we don't have, because unfortunately somehow our domestic politics also has linkages with our foreign relations. In my humble opinion, there are certain issues which relate to our national security and the our existential threats. So like issue of Kashmir, our handling of India, our handling of Afghanistan, we should develop across the board consensus on that. And we should not show to the world and to the people who are concerned that there are any fissures in our thinking, and there are some elements within our own hierarchy of political establishment or our decision makers who have reluctance to take them head on.
So Mr. Malik, when you said that Pakistan can go ahead with that last resort at its own, so but at the same time it would definitely require the international community's support in that, the protection of international law at the same time as well, no?
Yes, we should at least because Afghanistan is not only our problem. The stability and prosperity in Afghanistan is a matter of concern of all her neighbors, because there are so many projects of energy projects and trades and look east policy and CPAC and TAPI, so many projects which has their entire dependence on the stability and peace in Afghanistan. So those parts should be taken into confidence, and we should develop at least our consensus with China, Russia and all other neighbors of Afghanistan, and then we can obviously further see, because we really have to see that after withdrawal there hasn't been any substantial indication by America, as you have mentioned, that what are their future plans to handle Afghanistan. So we really have to act very cautiously to engage ourselves with America and safeguard our interests.
So what about the regional countries? When we talk about the Afghan Taliban, they so desperately look for that international recognition. So can Pakistan use that particular international recognition for the Afghan Taliban as a bargaining chip to make them fulfill their commitments?
Yes, even the last regime of Afghanistan was just it was only accepted and recognized by few countries, UAE, Pakistan and KSA maybe. But at that time there were generally there were some powers, international players who just kept their eyes closed and let it happen. But now that we see that there is a consensus unless that barrier is broken, probably no regional country will take initiative at her own.
So what could be done in order to form and build that consensus among the regional countries when it comes to giving that recognition to the Afghan?
I think there should be a kind of on the, let's say, in Doha talks kind of a thing. We should engage. We should create a forum where all these regional countries, they can discuss the issue, and maybe even in the presence of a representative from the Afghan interim government, and there should be a give and take, because definitely these Taliban are not that rigid as they were in their first stint in power back in 90s. So they have better negotiation skills, they have better diplomatic skills, and they really know how to manipulate certain things to their advantage. So they won't be as stubborn as they were in case of word demand on OBL post 9/11, for example. And I think the better sense will prevail. We really have to provide them an opportunity to show their willingness to cooperate at certain mutually agreed terms and conditions.
Commitment. Air Vice Marshal retired Ijaz Malik, senior analyst. Thank you very much for taking time out for views on news tonight. Really appreciate that. And with that, we come to the end of today's show. Until the next one, take good care of yourselves.